You are Locked On Knicks POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, a rough and tumble night in Houston, almost a throwback type night, if you will. And despite the fun memories, the Rockets outlasted the Knicks in Houston. Final score 109-97 as the Rockets pull away late. New York's mini two-game win streak comes to an end. Rockets led by as many as 15. The Knicks cut it to as few as 1. But in the end, the young Rockets pull away, finishing the game on a 9-0 run. Again, 109-97 is your final score. Hello, everyone. I'm Jay Berman. If you're a New Yorker, you might recognize my work. If not, welcome aboard. I've spent more than 2 decades in the biz, everything from TV to web to radio. You can follow me on X at Jay Berman. That's JayBerman. Welcome to the Locked On Knicks postcast, both on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel and the Locked On Knicks podcast feed. The postcast gives you a place to hang out after every single Knicks game. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We'll chat everything Jalen Brunson, who once again led the Knicks, was impressive in doing so. Karl-Anthony Towns was also solid despite foul trouble early and often. The comeback, as we said, falls short from 15 down to 1. That's as close as they could get. New York falls to 2-2 on the road, 3-3 overall. All that coming up on the postcast. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. And that newsletter will feature the latest loss for the Knicks in Houston to the Rockets. As we said, final score 109-97. It was really a night of runs. The Rockets spotted the Knicks an early 5-point lead. They would turn that, would the Rockets, into a 10-point lead of their own. So basically a 15-point turnaround. So from that point on, from the point the Rockets went up by 10 over the Knicks, it fluctuated all night from as many as 15 all the way down to a single point, but the Knicks could not retake the lead at any point. And as we said, a rough and tumble night, a lot of physicality, old school Knicks and Rockets battle from Houston. As we said, the Rockets, a young team, a scrappy team, a team that many of us don't know that much about, but they're solid and they have built a foundation of good young players. The Rockets 27-14 at home last season. Despite a 1-2 mark at home this season, a difficult place to play. You knew it was going to be a difficult spot for the Knicks. And if you could take a look at these numbers, as we usually do early in the first segment, lots of interesting disparaging numbers here in regards to plus minus, turnover ratio, even 3-point field goal percentage. Let's start with the plus minus. And the bad goes to Karl-Anthony Towns, a minus 26, despite 17 points and 19 rebounds, 9 offensive rebounds for Karl-Anthony Towns. We'll get to those numbers more in just a bit. But again, as we said, a rough and tumble night featuring lots of physicality, lots of let them play, if you will. The broadcast team of Mike Breen and Wally Zerbiak were discussing the fact that it seemed like the refs were letting them play in this one. And despite that, the Knicks just could not get over that hump. Those plus-minus numbers are troubling. Believe it or not, the only 2 Knicks finishing with a plus in the plus-minus category, Jericho Sims, who was not great tonight, came off the bench, 4 more fouls, was a plus 14. Deuce McBride, who was up and down, struggled shooting. In fact, missed all 9 all 9 shots he took, including all 5 3-pointers, was a plus 10, believe it or not, tonight. Again, Jalen Brunson led the way, Brunson had 29, but on just 9 of 24 shooting, did hit all 9 of his free throws. As we said, Karl Anthony Towns, 17 points, 19 rebounds, 7 of 17 shooting. He had a lot to say to the refs, to the opponents tonight. Very vocal Karl Anthony Towns. OG was good, 7 of 14, 5 of 6 from three-point land. Those 5 of 6 three-pointers, 4 of them came in the first half. OG pumping in 16 in the first half, 4 of 4 from three-point line in the first half. But again, it wasn't enough as the Knicks fall 109-97, just could not get over the hump. And how about this Şengün fella from Turkey who was just killing them inside all afternoon, really all night long. And that brings us to Precious Achiuwa and, of course, Mitchell Robinson. They can't get back here soon enough. Points in the paint, those were killers. Şengün was 11 of 15 from the floor, pumped in 25, grabbed 14 rebounds, dished out 5 assists, even had 4 blocks. He was a beast. He was a pest. He did everything that the Knicks tried to stop and just could not. The combination of him and our old friend Fred VanVleet, who, by the way, entered the game through 6 games for the Rockets, shooting 28% from the floor. And what does he do? Of course, 14 points in the first quarter. Doesn't miss a shot in the first quarter. Finishes 8 of 13, 19 points. Also dished out 5 assists, was a plus 12, and he played well. So the combination of, as we said, the man from Turkey, Şengün, and obviously Fred VanVleet. Jalen Green had a couple of huge three-pointers late. The killer threes came after he missed his first 6 three-pointers. Those last 2 that he would hit were huge. But again, multiple times in both the first and second halves, the Knicks would get to within 5 or 6, and then the Rockets would pump it back up to 10, 12, 13, 15, until eventually in the fourth quarter, the Knicks would get it down to 1, but they could not get over the hump, as we said. Very physical, very close, very closely officiated game. And again, it was pretty much tight the whole way, with the exception of that spurt, which featured a 15-point lead for the Rockets that came in the second quarter. Knicks would get that run down to 5. In fact, the Knicks would finish the first half on a 10-0 run to cut it down to 5 from 15. The Rockets would finish the fourth quarter on a 9-0 run. At one point, it was in with 3. It was 197. But again, that's as close as the Knicks would get. 109-97 was your final score. Knicks are now 3-3 overall. As we said, 2-2 away. The final game of this 4-game swing will end up in Atlanta Wednesday night when they face the Rockets before returning home for the Milwaukee Bucks on Friday. We will get to the schedule coming up. But again, the Rockets, a very difficult team to play in their building. 27-14 at home last season, 1-2 this season, but obviously bouncing back after a crushing loss to the Golden State Warriors. Now, we talked about the Knicks and their scoring. 4 consecutive games where all 5 starters were within double digits in points. And because of the shortened bench, once again, that happened tonight. So make it 5 consecutive games where all 5 starters were in double digits. Bridges had 15. Anunoby had 21. Karl Anthony Towns had 17. Jalen Brunson had 29. And Josh Hart had 12. So again, that number is now up to 5 consecutive games where all 5 starters were with double digits in points. The team record, as we told you a couple of nights back, worthy of mentioning once again, 1989, 6 straight games where all 5 starters were in double digits in points. And the Knicks are, again, 1 game of that situation away from this all. We told you about Karl Anthony Towns and the difficulty staying in the game because of foul trouble. 3 fouls halfway through. In fact, halfway through the second quarter. 6.5 minutes to play in the second quarter, and he sat for the rest of the first half. And then what happens in the very early stages of the third quarter, just a minute and a half in, he picks up his fourth foul, and a careless one at that. And it proved to hurt the Knicks because they could not stop Şengün in the paint, especially late. So as we said, Precious Achiuwa and Mitchell Robinson cannot return soon enough. As we said, we will talk about the upcoming schedule. And of course, we'll talk about those numbers, specifically the plus minus numbers. All right, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy, which is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. You might be thinking, well, I don't have time. But with BetterHelp, you can connect with a therapist entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge until you find the perfect fit. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Do that today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, an excruciating loss for the Knicks tonight. They lose by a dozen. It was a lot closer than that. Final score 109-97. The Rockets scored the final 9 points of the game. They finish on a 9-0 run, and they send the Knicks to a third loss and their first in 3 games. If you recall, the season began in Boston with a blowout loss. They then beat Indiana, lost to Cleveland, wins in Miami and Detroit before the loss in Houston tonight. The 4-game road trip will wind up Wednesday in Atlanta against the Hawks at 7:30 again on Wednesday before we finally return home to the Garden on Friday night against the 1-win Bucks, and we'll get to that. Again, 109-97 was the final score. The Rockets, as we said, very difficult team to face in their own building. Obviously did not win a title last year, but a scrappy team, 27-14 at home last season. All right, Mikal Bridges pumped in 15 for New York on 6 of 14 shooting. OG had 21 on 7 of 14 shooting. Karl Anthony Towns had 17, but was a minus 26, which is an astounding number. Even Jalen Brunson was a minus 8. Minus 20 for Josh Hart. Minus 21 for Mikal Bridges. Jericho Sims, Deuce McBride, and Tyler Kolek were the only members of the Knicks coming off the bench. Again, Cam Payne, you said, was out with a hamstring. The benches were shortened. Only 8 players used by the Knicks. Only 9 players used by the Rockets. And the Rockets really have quite an interesting core of young players. Van Vliet aside, and even Dylan Brooks aside, but from Green to Şengün, to Eason, to Thompson, to Shepherd, really a very interesting core, and that's what the Knicks ran into tonight. All right. As for the schedule, we told you about the rough schedule, especially heavy road schedule it's been for the Knicks of late. As we said, the 4-game swing down in Miami, up to Detroit, down to Houston, over to Atlanta, back up to New York. And again, Wednesday night, this 4-game road swing will come to an end in Atlanta against the Hawks. Then on Friday, back home for the Bucks, who, yes, have just 1 win on the season. Despite that, a formidable foe are the Milwaukee Bucks. So we'll certainly keep our eyes on that one. Sunday, back out on the road in Indiana to face the Pacers. And then in a week, actually Tuesday, November 12th, in Philadelphia to face the Sixers. So once again, long stretch of road games here. Miami, Detroit, Houston, Atlanta, Indiana, and Philadelphia. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 out of 7 on the road. And so far, the Knicks are 2-1 out of those 3 of 7 games. All right, as we said, the Knicks trailed by as many as 15 in the first half. A late 10-0 run got the Knicks to within 5 at the break, and that was really a microcosm of not only the night, but really the season so far for the Knicks. Getting close, keeping things close, and with the exception of really just the Boston game and then the Detroit game, things have been tight. Those games got out of hand early, and so those games coasted to the end for the victors. Tonight, a little bit different. A much more 1990s style NBA game. Lots of fouls, lots of physicality. And it was actually fun to see, despite the difficulties the Knicks had in coming from behind and overtaking the Rockets at any point. It was fun to see the physicality. Now, you're not going to see that every night, especially with the reliance on the 3-ball these days. The Knicks were 11 of 28 from three-point land, a shade under 40%. They've been great in field goal and three-point field goal percentage. Not tonight. 11 of 28 from 3. As for the Rockets, they hit just 8 3-pointers. They shot 33 threes and made just 8 of them. If they had anywhere near a decent night from 3, perhaps we weren't discussing a close game. As we said multiple times in both the first and second half, the Knicks got it down to single digits before the Rockets pumped it back up to 10, to 12, to 13, to 15. It was a frustrating night, one in which the Knicks could not get over the hump in Houston. All right, we'll take one last break, and then when we do, we'll set you up for the next couple of nights as the Knicks play one more game on the road before finally returning home. All right, listen up, NFL fans. Now is your chance to start the season with a big return. Yep, you can do it with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So here's what you need to do when you have a hunch in the middle of the game. Go over to FanDuel, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. The best part is it's all on the same page where you place your bets. Everything is right there for you. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. All right, final segment of the show. As we said, Rockets beat the Knicks in Houston 109-97. Difficult place for the Knicks to play. The Rockets were 27-14 at home last season. That's a good number, and it's a difficult place to play. And the Knicks were burned. As we said, they got to within 1 in the fourth quarter, but the Rockets finished the game on a 9-0 run. Fred VanVleet was great early. Şengün was great early and late, killing them in the paint. As we said, Precious Achiuwa and Mitchell Robinson need to return ASAP. Knicks are hurting in the paint, especially on the defensive end. No answers for Şengün at all tonight. VanVleet early. And what's interesting and worthy of mentioning Fred VanVleet so many times is the fact that he was so poor from the field through the first 6 Rocket games. A collective 28% from the floor. What does he do? Hits his first 5 shots, 8 of 13 on the night, pumps in 19, was a plus 12. And speaking of the plus minus, we discussed exactly where things went wrong. Karl Anthony Towns played 32 minutes and was a minus 26. Jalen Brunson played 42 minutes and was a minus 8. Meanwhile, Josh Hart, minus 20. Mikal Bridges was a minus 21. So without getting too much into the numbers, lots of minus numbers there for the Knicks in the plus minus category, which is never a good thing. In fact, if I told you those numbers without reading you the final score, you might have thought it was a blowout, but it wasn't. Just goes to show how tough the Knicks are and how tough Tibbs' teams are, even when things aren't going well. But again, the arrival of Precious Achiuwa first, and then eventually Mitchell Robinson will certainly help. All right, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. Also want to mention our partners in crime over at Locked On Knicks, Gavin Shaw and Alex Wolf. They handle all the stuff there again at Locked On Knicks. They're the best. Follow, subscribe, and enjoy. Again, that's Locked On Knicks with Gavin and Alex. All right, one more time. The Rockets beat the Knicks tonight, 109-97. Houston improves to 4-3. They're 2-2 at home. The Knicks are 3-3 overall, 2-2 away. Knicks now move the traveling roadshow to Atlanta to face the Hawks. That'll be Wednesday night, 7:30. Also at 7:30 will be the Friday night game from the Garden as the Knicks return home. Finally, they've played just 2 home games so far against the Pacers and against Cleveland. They've obviously split those 2 games early. So again, they'll get Milwaukee Friday night, then back out on the road Sunday and next Tuesday for Indiana and Philadelphia, respectively. So again, 6 out of 7 on the road. The Knicks trying to keep their head above water. Again, 3-3 is the Knicks mark now. They're 2-2 away, 1-1 at home, and the road trip will conclude Wednesday night in Atlanta against the Hawks. Then it's Milwaukee at home Friday night at the Garden. Once again, my name is Jay Berman. If you want to follow me on X, that's at JAYBERMAN. Knicks lose to the Rockets tonight, 109-97.